Hey Jeff, yeah, even suggest checking the actual labels of the dog food to see if they've changed anything.
See if they change the ingredient ratios.
No, not out to a dance, out. Some idiot started to pull out in front of me while I was doing 60 miles an hour down the road there. He was in a pickup, I was in the Bago. Luckily, he saw me and stopped before he got more than about halfway through the opposite lane. But yeah, I was starting to look for options off of the pavement because it was going to get pretty serious. There was no way I could stop. But had he kept going, I probably would have, went tried to go behind him. Luckily, he saw me and stopped. But I mean, it's like I'm driving a big car. The sun's the other way. You know, please open your eyes. Yeah, that was no fun. Wakes you right up. Yeah, Chris. So that was it. It was clear when he started to cross the road that uh, he would have been right in front of me, completely blocking my lane when I got there. I don't think a cow catcher works on Chevy pickups, Tricky. I don't know if I think it was a Chevy. Whatever. It was a later model than mine, but it was a full size pickup. Most of the semi trucks around here do have the game catchers on the front, and a lot of the personal vehicles do also. There's a lot of deer. Um, the In Montana, they actually have a roadkill permit. If you whack a deer, I don't know. Does it work on elk and stuff too, little one?
There are certain species it works on.
For certain
Well, there are
species,
certain species they ask you to get a tag on. I don't
yeah.
know what you do about other things you kill. Yeah.
But anyhow, for certain species, if you run one over, you just log onto their website and you get a permit and you can take it home. You know, yeah, it's pretty
You
weird.
can field dress it on the side of the road depending on how you dispose of the remains.
Little one, look at this lip over here. The other side's purple now. Hmm, it's the same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
See inside. Yeah, inside is irritated as well.
Hmm.
Are you
I'm not.
really biting your lip or something without
No, I'm
realizing?
not biting my lip. I'm not sure what this is. I had one over here last week. I think maybe it's from sun.
Well, you were wearing a mask all day today.
Yeah, Tom. Of course, I look old. I've earned it, and I can't
Did
say it
that
on YouTube.
perish?
Yeah.
Tell him to text me any bills he has.
Eva says, text any bills you've got. Went and get yourself a hematoma. It doesn't look like, I mean, it looks like a bruise, but I didn't do anything that should have got it. No, not to my knowledge, Tricky. Maybe getting sun sensitive or something. I don't know. It's a little bit concerning, but this one was bigger. It just appeared one day. And then this one, and both times I was out at the ranch, at the mill. So it's no, you're herpes. I'm clearly a doctor, Tom. Uh, but that in both cases, I was out at the mill, so it could be chemical or it could be sunlight or something like that. I wasn't doing anything today in the lab, Chris. I was just out at the um, pad, drained the tank, refilled the tank, started working on putting ore in the tank, and kind of hard to tell when I was in the mine, David. There's a lot of dirt on me, but okay, it's possibly correct. We'll keep an eye on these things. That's kind of weird. Yeah, I don't know. That's the only place I've seen it, is just on the lower lip. So we'll see. But anyhow, so sin caused cold sore? Doesn't seem likely. Uh, you'd have to have the cause before the effect. Causality still works, right? Sun. Oh, sun. Don't think it's a cold sore. I say it looks like a bruise. It's slightly sensitive to the touch, and I'm not sure if a sunburn can do that basically or what. It's just weird. But anyhow, yeah. If I keep getting them, I'll go. When's my appointment with a dermatologist? I got one a couple of months anyway. Eat anything weird? No, no. Don't rub it. Well, I say the skin is unbroken. It's not like a sore. Underripe nuts. Um, Closest thing would be sunflower seeds. I don't think that counts. You always got to come up with. You always got to blame it on the nuts, Chris. I mean, what can I do? Uh, Anyhow,
Well, just lop off the other one and we won't have a problem anymore.
why she wants that. But anyhow, um, um, this weekend we did not go out to the mine. We were getting. Is it like a blizzard? Could it be a salt reaction? I'm not familiar with a salt reaction.
I wouldn't think so. You would have been getting it before now.
Yeah. Raw underripened nuts can cause that, huh? Hmm. Anyhow, we didn't go mining this weekend because we were resting our bodies a bit. Quit running your face. Over exercising the lips, huh? Okay. Uh, but anyhow, so we were taking a bit of a break, which gives more time at the mill, more time to get stuff done. I was changing oil and filters and engines and stuff. That on Saturday, Sunday, Friday, not sure. Botox, nah, not me.
Did you write down your hours, by the way?
No, I didn't. Let me write the hours down. Goodness. Today's Monday, right?
Yep.
Yeah, it was on Saturday apparently. Monday 3. Okay. So anyhow, we uh we're getting some stuff done. I got the air shocks installed on my on the Bago. Or actually, essentially, Lauren installed the air shocks. The guy just won't stand back. So anyhow, we got those on, and it did change the vibration dramatically. It's not completely gone, but almost gone. And Lauren noticed that the bushings on the springs have gotten knocked. I mean, they're worn out. So I need to order those tomorrow. Let me put that on my order spring bushings. Yeah, there's a company in Great Falls that's really good with that stuff. That possibly, Chris. All the tests I've had done recently all came out great. You had a mudslide 2 days ago, Lars? Wow. Over one of your portals. It only took you 4 months to dig it out the first time.
What happened to that pork you bought?
The what?
The pork you bought for canning.
It's in the fridge. Shouldn't be too hard, Chris. The trick is use an air chisel with a punch point on it, and it'll drive the old bushings right out. It actually makes it pretty. You just take the bolt out, jack the frame up to where you got a straight shot at it, punch it through. And then the new bushings are usually just, like the neoprene or whatever. But anyhow, they're more of a hard plastic bushing, and they're usually a split bushing. So you put one in each side, and that way you don't really have to press it in. You just tap it in. It's real easy. So the new ones are usually pretty simple. Getting the old ones out, because they're usually they have a steel sleeve on them. Those trick is just get an air chisel with a punch point on it. Hey, Rock. That's nice, Rock. Haven't calculated the numbers precisely yet, but Eva's assay is pretty close to what your XRF was of the particular batch of resin she's tested so far. So seem to have confirmation there. The new test is around 250. Which test are we talking about? Resort Dog? What fancy? I'm confused here. Nothing new. Dog allergies. Oh, the new test is around 250. Yeah, dog allergies can do it. We had a dog when I was about in my teens that, it got some allergies kind of out of the blue, and yeah. Yeah, that was my thought too, Rock. So anyhow, that brings up another little subject here. I have two rocks right here. And the question is, which one is a decent grade ore and which one is crap? So put in your votes now, red or black. Which one's ore, which one's crap? Both are ore and both are crap? I guess Resort Dog is saying black. He just said B. Okay. Well, we just got the assays on these. And this one here, which looks almost like just like stained wall rock, red stained wall rock, this is running like half an ounce to the ton. Won't tell you where it came from. This one, which is porous, it looks vuggy and, it's leached out old minerals and stuff. This was only 0.03. So it's very difficult to judge these things by eye until you've got a lot of experience. That's why the stuff that we were digging last week, we sent samples of everything off. The one that I'm really concerned about is the stuff that's black.
Question, is either one of those porous?
Yeah, the black one is the crap. I mean, it looks almost like boxworks.
Well, does it soak up water then?
I don't know. Of course it does, because it's got holes in it. So does the other one. They're both porous.
We had some stuff that looked the same but did not soak up water. That's why I asked.
Yep. No, I looked at this black stuff and I thought, wow, that looks pretty juicy. Almost pure boxwork it looks like. But crap. This, on the other hand, just more like stained, fragmented wall rock. It doesn't look really like vein rock, but this stuff is actually decent grade. Nothing extraordinary, but decent grade. Half an ounce ain't bad. Um, the reason I can give you numbers is because there's no identification of where the heck they came from. You know, um, so um, when I get the assays back from that latest slice we took out of the mine, I can give you high grade ore, low grade, waste, that sort of stuff. Resort Dog is right. Boiling boxworks is the absolute upper level, and epithermal deposit is likely barren in gold. Might have some silver. Uh, okay. The red had 0.08 silver, and the black had 0.40 silver. So yeah, it was higher in silver and much lower in gold. 5 times more silver than the red, and 15 times less gold. But yeah, one thing I'm trying to figure out right now, that slice that I took last week is there's some stuff that it's black and powdery and probably mixed with wall rock. It's like fracture filling in the wall rock and everything. And I'm trying to figure out what the heck that stuff is. It could be anything from molybdenum or manganese or something else to carbon. And if it's carbon, we definitely don't want to put it in the leach. So we're getting that assay to get an idea what the heck we got. So that's interesting. You want electrum nuggets, please? Okay, that brings me up to the second thing. The goddess is annoyed because the goddess took, correct me if I'm wrong, took 2 samples of resin. They were splits off of the exact same sample. She blended it, split it in half basically. And one of them, and she added the same amount of silver to both samples, did the fire assay, got buttons, cupelled the buttons, got beads, threw them in the nitric acid.
Same bottle of nitric acid.
The same stock bottle of nitric acid.
Before anybody asked, the amount of silver I imported was consistent with what I have been using for that grade of resin for months.
Yeah, I mean, she did everything like she's been doing and having no problem. And this bead would not part. It just wouldn't dissolve. It just sat there. We added a little bit more nitric. It still just sat there. I mean, concentrated nitric. Still just sat there. So then she inquarted
the weight of the bead.
She inquarted as much silver as the existing weight of the bead, which should have already been like 2/3 to 3/4 silver, and cupelled it again, put it in the nitric, the parting nitric, and it was still just sitting there. She added a little bit more concentrated nitric, and it started to react.
And I turned up the temperature.
And she turned up the temperature. Any ideas, anybody? No, she did not, Rock. She's not that strong, and she didn't ask me to do it. She did mention that she probably should have asked me to do so, but she's been getting excellent parting.
You can tell Rock, because of the import of silver I use, I generally do not have to flatten my beads.
Did you hear that?
They part perfectly without being flattened. I parted 9 freaking beads.
Yeah, she did 9 other beads that same day that worked just fine without flattening. But I say we can try that. But say the procedure has been working just fine week after week, and but it seems like there's something different about that one, and I was wondering if anyone had any ideas what exactly. Eva, Christine from Richard says hello.
Hi.
Is that
Hi, Christine.
Is that one of the little ones? I think, Richard. She's coming.
Hi, Christine.
But anyhow, so wife. Okay, I can't keep track of hardly anything anymore.
You can never keep track of anything. We all know this.
I know. But
That's why I do
anyhow,
all the paperwork.
so if it's not parted by the time she gets back 2 days from now, we'll try flattening it. Well, that's true, but the exact same resin from the same cartridge from the same sample split, I wouldn't think would be that different. That's the thing. I
have gotten a nugget effect, so to speak, from the resin beads before, but not to the extent that it would have overwhelmed the amount of silver I used. I calculated my silver based on that higher value.
Anyhow, I say that this was when we take out a cartridge of resin, Eva will take about 50 grams of that resin and dry it.
By the way, you have jury duty in Tucson.
Really? Tell them I don't live there anymore. Wow.
They can't do that because, well, wait, the car is still registered in your name.
No, it should be voters. I'm not registered to vote there. I don't know, but I mean, that would make sense if it was one, but I mean, literally 50 grams of resin, dried, blended. One sample works fine. The other sample doesn't work worth a crap. That was, that's the weird thing is that it's essentially it's the same sample. They're two splits, same sample. And one behaved absolutely normally, and one is just being extremely recalcitrant.
I'm going to have to check the voter rolls.
And so that's why she's annoyed. If it was a different sample, yeah, sure, something's different here. It's the same damn batch of resin. Anyhow, so I say that's we'll try the flattening thingy, but I say she went and she doubled the weight of the bead with silver today, and then tried to repart it, and again, it still just kind of sat there. All being equal is an error in the process. Well, that would make sense, except it isn't equal apparently.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I double checked freaking everything.
Chris is wondering if there could have been any kind of contamination from something in any of the labware or anything like that. The only thing I can think of as a possible source of contamination would be the silver, because it's not, reagent grade or anything like that. It's what we've precipitated from previous silver in quartz. But yeah.
But that wouldn't explain how I got 9 other perfect beads.
Yeah. I say everything else is working fine except that one. Weird. The fire assay on my sample came back 0 from the lab, but the company showed values from one end to the other. That would, no. One didn't fume at all, Chris. It just sat there doing nothing, like you'd poured water on it.
It didn't even discolor.
Yeah, it didn't discolor. Nothing. The other one parted perfectly.
All 9 parted perfectly.
Yeah. How long did it take to part the other bead?
They parted in exactly the time I expected for the size.
Which is what? Give me
about 5 to 7 minutes each.
In less than 10 minutes, the other one had completely parted, and this one hadn't shown any reaction at all.
Let me put it this way. 4 beads went into that warmer at the same time. Okay. One other one was from the same sample. The other 2 were a different sample. The other 3 beads all parted in under 10 minutes. They fizzed and foamed exactly the way you'd expect. Everything went well. This one bead did fucking nothing. Okay.
The reagents were all from the same bottle.
Yeah, the reagents were all from the same bottle. All of my supplies were from the same thing. And yes, I cleaned my supplies in between. Okay. So I have no freaking clue. But this is the first bead I have had not part in like 9-10 months. I had that problem initially one time. And then after I read the book and got things right, I never had the problem again.
Hi, Indiana. How's it going? There's no PGMs that we're aware of. We haven't specifically tested for them. So
I have seen none of the indications in the assay process.
And she's saying she hasn't seen any beads that show any of the indications, whichever those are. She's read the book. She has a lot of time in the lab, so she reads the book a lot. But she usually doesn't touch the beads with her fingers, Chris. She's usually using tweezers.
I always use tweezers. Why on earth would I touch them? Skin oils are a thing.
Yeah. I say it's just one of those weird things. It's like, what the heck happened? But yeah, not sure. We shall see. We can report next week on what we did to make it work.
Well, it was mostly parted when we left because I broke it up with my pick.
Yes, Lars, it's all from the same source. Originally, Prospector Tripp sent us some of his precipitated silver that he'd refined. And being in a fairly fine flake form, it's just perfect for what we need. So we just use that. And then once we have a lot of silver nitrate in solution, we then neutralize the nitric acid with sodium hydroxide and then precipitate with copper.
I'm making a new dose of silver.
Yep. So anyhow, I don't know. It's very weird. Let's see. We were out there at 1:45. Today, it took me an hour and 45 minutes to dump the tank, clean out the tank, reload the tank with solution. So that's going pretty smoothly right now. And then I was in the process of grinding up more ore and loading the batch when we had to stop to get back here. We, left at 4:00 basically. And I agree, Resort Dog. We just have no idea what's different. I mean, it's pretty clear something's different. Either that or the laws of physics and chemistry are not working consistently at the ranch, and that would be a bad thing. Life gets really confusing when that happens. I hate it when the rules of the universe decide to become optional. But anyhow, hey, Paul. So anyhow, let's see. So that means I'm running at about 500 pounds an hour. And that should, that's pretty much the grinding rate. I need to take that Stutenroth apart and look at the impactors again. I can tell there's a little bit of difference in the way it's grinding. And I actually like the way it flows better now. Yeah, Chris. It could happen. Stranger things have not. I don't know if stranger things have happened to Eva and me, but strange things have happened. So, yep, wouldn't horribly surprise me. When we went over to the Oregon Vortex one time, um, I was uh, I was prepared for what we were doing. We were going to be there and everything. So I took a fishing weight on some fishing string in my pocket to see if it, would hang oddball. And I mean, honestly, I'm hanging the weight from the fishing string in front of me while I'm standing there, and it really looks like it's going 15 degrees off vertical. And I say it was strange because I mean, you can tell when you're balanced, and everything's fine, and you expect it to be hanging straight in front of you, not off at a significant angle. Yeah, it was just a real. I had a little teeny plumb line in my pocket because I knew that this is what's going to happen. That they say that the gravity's off, and I wanted to make sure there wasn't some kind of optical illusion or whatever. I even tried closing my eyes and touching it, and again, it wasn't straight in front of me. It was over here. I have no idea, you know, but yeah, it's quite interesting. I will say that. Because it really did appear, the perception was that the weight was not behaving the same way in gravity that my body was. Yep. Yeah, I say an optical illusion is fine, Rock. Have you ever held a plumb line in front of you while you're standing straight up and down and touched it, and the weight is off to one side? And it was, I say, it was really quite interesting.
And how did I react?
Because I'm very good at stuff like that in general because I have done a lot of stuff like that. Okay, I need 90 degrees to this line here, you know, and I can do stuff like that with a fair degree of precision through practice. And yes, I've observed a number of visual illusions, like, well, that looks flat, but it isn't,
Add this to your list.
Okay, add that to my list. Where's my list? There's my list. Okay. And whip topping. So I'm usually pretty good at that. Oh, I know, Rock. I said this wasn't in a mine.
You know how I react.
It's a place called the Oregon Vortex. If you're going up I-5 from California into Oregon, it's about, I don't know, 15, 20 miles into Oregon. There's a place called Gold Hill. It's near there. It's about 8 miles off of the freeway. And they have a number of things which could easily be faked. Okay. Like they have a big giant plumb bob and a few other little things like that. And they can stand what do you call it? A broom handle. He says it varies by the day, but a lot of times you just get it to balance there and just sit there, and I don't know. But that's why I brought the plumb bob to see if they've got their plumb bob. It may look like it's hanging on a rope, but that's actually a lot stronger than a rope or something. I didn't know. And I say, so I had a little plumb bob in my pocket. Exactly, Rock. That's what I'm talking about. It's like,
tell them how I reacted.
I don't remember how you react. Tell them how I react. But yeah, Rock. Again, you've been in the field doing rough surveys and this and that for a long time, so your senses are pretty attuned to what's straight, what's level, what's this, what's that, what kind of optical illusions you can get, what you can do to avoid them, like, a plumb bob. Uh, one optical illusion that I have is, how far am I from that, down there on the floor, like specifically at the bottom of that ladder track. So I'll take a rock in each hand and I'll drop one and see where it hits, and then drop the other. And I go, okay, that's 6 feet apart. From there I can figure it out pretty well. But yeah, Chris, 2%. Yeah, this was about 15 degrees laterally. It was
Probably due to
like
ley
that.
lines.
It wasn't a minor thing. It was pretty dramatic.
Probably due to ley lines plus a geomagnetic bubble.
Yeah, Eva seemed quite distort. I don't know what you could, not distorted, but you were disoriented. Exactly. See, I can't even find my words anymore. But anyhow, I say, so it's quite odd. It was interesting.
I want to go again.
Mr. Lodak says, I rewound the video from the other day to get the numbers again, and that I said gold and silver should catch support at. Showed David and Scotty the charts, and they caught support within pennies of what I said. Yeah, you seem to be pretty good at that, Jaron. And that's quite a talent to have.
That is a great talent to have. Are we going to stick here, or are we going to the moon?
Eventually, we'll get to the moon. There was somebody once said, the meek shall inherit the earth. The rest of us will escape to the stars. So anyhow, let's see what else. Eva asked me a question today that I thought might be interesting for the people who aren't real experts in mining here. And that is, why are some mines open pit? Why are some underground? Why are some a combination? Blah, blah, blah. So I thought I'd just do a quick little synopsis on why you do one versus the other for the people who are not that knowledgeable out there. And so there's two major types of mines, underground and open pit. There's another kind of mine called a strip mine, but it really only applies to very specific things, mainly coal. So I won't deal with that. Now, can we see everything here? Or should I turn this light on? That looks a little better, I think. Okay. Yeah, we're doing fine, Adam. Cool, Paul. So why do we have underground mines in some places, open pit mines in other places, and other places where it's both? Well, first of all, technology has changed. Around here, like at Butte, there's a lot of underground mines that are now being open pitted. And that's because they just have much bigger, more efficient equipment to move rock nowadays than they had in the early 1900s, late 1800s. It may sound pretty strange, but it used to be in an open pit mine. Let's say here's your bench that's you're working on, and this is your muck pile here. They would have railroad track running here, and then they'd have a shovel. And he would scoop up the ore and dump it in the rail cars. And then once he'd moved this back a certain distance, he could no longer reach the rail cars, and he had to move the railroad track over to continue. You had to have fairly shallow grades to spiral up out of the pit with a train. And so this was a lot more limiting than what we can do nowadays. With heavy equipment, the trucks can easily climb and descend 10% grade. Sometimes they go steeper than that, but 10% is kind of a pretty good number. And so as the technology changed, the opportunities changed. With underground, it's very selective. You move the least amount of waste to the amount of ore. With an open pit mine, it's less selective. You have to move a lot more waste and low grade and things like that to get to your good ore. Now, this also depends on depth and configuration. For example, if here was your ground surface and your ore body was here, you might easily be able to open pit that, because this right here is only showing a 1-to-1 ore to waste ratio. If, on the other hand, it wasn't flat lying like that, but vertical like this, very quick. Because typically in an open pit, about the closest you can get is 2-to-1 slope, something like that. Depends on the rock and other things, but to get this rock down here, you have to move that much waste. It gets uneconomic very, very quickly. So the configuration of the ore body can make a difference. The depth. If here's the surface and the ore body is down here and this is 2,000 feet, think of the pit you'd have to dig to get down to it. Again, your ore to waste ratio goes to hell, but you're going to spend a couple $1 billion before you get there. On the other hand, if you drive a shaft, you can start mining it right away. Now, underground mining per ton moved is, in virtually all cases, significantly more expensive than open pit mining, because you can't use as big equipment. You need to worry about ground support, things like that. In some special cases, you have very competent rock. I've heard of limestone mines, for example, where the drifts are 50 feet wide, 40 feet high, and they advance them like 20 feet high, and then they just surface drill down and blast a 20-foot bench. And the limestone is so competent that they can do that and use essentially open pit techniques to a great extent. But in most cases in underground, you're going to be mining in tighter areas. You can't use as big equipment. You got to drill ahead of you with small holes. It's just more expensive per ton. And therefore, you need higher grades. All else being equal, because it's less expensive per ton, this can use lower grades and still make a profit, as long as you don't have too much waste. At the first gold mine I worked at, our mining cost was $1 a ton. Our processing cost was $5 a ton. Our ore waste break was 1/100th of an ounce per ton. If it was better than that, we sent it to the heap. Okay. Usually it's surface leaching is why it would reduce the grade near surface, but it can be a number of different things also. But yeah, usually it's rainwater leaching stuff downward, especially more soluble minerals. So you put all this together, and if you had like Butte, you have the terrain here, and you have these veins through there, then they go and drive shafts, tunnels, whatever they got to do to get to these things, mine them out. But there's usually mineralization between of a lower grade, and now with the big trucks and everything, they can move that very cheaply, and now they're just taking the whole damn mountain. They are still actively mining at Butte, open pit, and they've got 30 years blocked out, but it's very, very common that open pits are located where old underground mines were for that very reason. 100 years ago or 100 plus years ago, the only way they could mine it effectively was underground. And as the technology changed, especially earth moving, then they could move much more efficiently. So they went and open pitted these things. But those are the major considerations. How expensive is getting water to the site to an underground mine? Quite often, getting the water out of your mine is the problem. Depends on the, it depends on where you're at, but like the South African mines are underneath an ocean, basically. And they're underneath cavernous limestone filled with water. And, they have pumping capacities in the neighborhood of millions of gallons a day per mine. The mine I was at, not sure how many thousands of gallons a day we could pump, but it was a fair amount. Yeah, Rock, it happens all the time. I'm trying to think. Every mine I've worked at that wasn't an underground mine used to have underground workings. At the old Picacho mine, we used to have old workings open up underneath stuff all the time. One time, and we were just using, at that time, I think 35-ton haul trucks. And I think we went to 50s. But anyhow, right in the middle of the haul road, hole opened up about that big. We're like, okay, stop the traffic, take the loader, punch it down, break on the top, start throwing stuff in. We dumped 2 truckloads in that little hole because it was a lot bigger underneath. Yeah, it can get pretty wild, Rock. I'll say you never can tell, but the potential is there for huge voids. And I would think that a big mining company that had significant risk of that might be using radar or something to try and spot stuff. They look at the old maps. If the thumbnail for this video is a model of a mine that was over there at Butte. And it's a 3D model of the actual mine workings. It gives you an idea just how complicated these things are. And so that's where, things come from. And old underground workings can be a real pain in an open pit operation. You also need to make sure you don't build your heap leach or mill on top of old workings. Yeah, sometimes the decimal place gets misplaced. Rock. Oh, yeah. Strange things can happen. I know that over Morenci, one time they were digging with a shovel. He hit an old magazine. Luckily, it was underneath the bucket, so nobody got injured. But the bottom of the bucket was destroyed. And considering those things are like 10, 12-inch thick steel, you can imagine the amount of the explosion. I imagine everybody there was wide awake after that happened. Yeah, Rock, you hate those little details, don't you? They will catch up. What's the worst that could happen? Um, one day when I was working underground, the engineer, and I have to have a lot of sympathy for the engineers at United Nuclear, because the rock moved. It constantly shifted. It was kind of plastic. And so the survey points would move. And I mean, they'd be resurveying the survey control every month or two. But they were advancing a mine into an old, fairly small, but nevertheless significant sized water filled void that they knew about. And the engineers assured the miners that it was, 20 feet to that void. They set up the jack leg, and he says started punching in, and the face just burst open and washed him 100 yards down the drift. Luckily, no serious injuries. You can find a lot of stuff on YouTube and the internet, Rock. Yeah, they were lucky they weren't seriously injured there. I say it was only like 100-foot tall raise, so the water ran away fairly quickly. The one time I had an issue like that was when I was uh, gosh, trip rider on an ore train at the time. And so my job was to operate the ore chute, operate the switches when we were going uphill, things like that. So we got up to number 4 raise. Not yet, Adam. Probably by next week. And so we got up to this raise, and little did I know they filled it essentially with mud. Something the basic consistency of wet concrete. And, I got out. The motorman pulled the train under, ready to start loading the first car. And you load car 1, move downhill a little bit, load car 2, and like that. And I'd operate the door while he'd move the train. Throw the valve for the door, nothing happens. You can hear the air going back and forth. The air cylinder is being pressurized. It's not moving. And so it's like, okay. There happened to be a 4-foot drill steel laying there. So I took that, put it on top of the locomotive. Was a little kind of shelf, it's sheet metal and stuff. Not sheet metal, plate metal. And so I braced it against this and had him banging the door. And so just tapping the door with a train, and we got it moving. Each little hit, it would move like, an eighth of an inch, quarter of an inch. And so it started to creep by itself. So I told him to stop, put the drill steel down, had my hand on the valve. I was waiting for it to speed up just a little bit, and through the valve just as it started speeding up. Now, not hydraulic, this was air. So when the resistance, the friction broke loose on that door, the door just popped open because the air pressure was fully on the open position, and it just went pop. And so in a fraction of a second, there was a 4-foot wide hole with 100 feet of wet concrete directly there. I mean, this far away from me. Oh my God. I mean, luckily I'd thrown the valve to the closed side, so the door was starting to close. And don't know about blowing the hard hat off. I know that, that car filled up real fast. Then it's just pouring over the sides of the car. The motor man sees all this stuff coming down on his train, so he throws it in drive to try and get out of there before it gets buried. I'm still standing between the locomotive and the first car, and so as he's pulling the train, I'm trying to pick my feet up and put them down and keep moving while I'm just hunkering down as stuff's going everywhere. And after a few feet, it was, I don't know, mid-calf deep. And I just couldn't pick them up and put them down fast enough anymore. You try and run in mud, it doesn't work too well. So I fell down. And as I fell outward from the center of the track, the motorman saw my helmet light and slams the train into reverse because now he knows where I'm at. I'm in the middle of the train. And he got it stopped in time, but the flange that engages the steel at the trench, so you can dump the car without pulling the truck off the track, which is 6 inches behind the front of the wheel, put a little cut in my back. Yeah. And yeah, it was a very interesting night. Yeah, you open up a void somewhere that's full of a liquid, life can get interesting. Ask them at Q Creek. That took, 10 days to get those guys out of there? It was a close one too. Anyhow, so I say those are the main reasons why you would use a underground mine instead of an open pit mine. Now, open pit doesn't mean big. We were at a mill the other day, an old mill, and across the valley you could see there was an open pit. I don't know, 100 feet wide, 200 feet long, 40 feet deep, maybe. And so, an open pit could be anything where you're just digging a pit. It could be quite small. You can do it with an excavator. The main thing, underground means you've got rock above your head. Open pit means it's next to you or underneath you. It doesn't necessarily mean the size. Oh, and sometimes you'll take a divot out of the side of the mountain to get to good rock before starting your underground mine so you can color the portal properly too. Oh, let's see. Anything else? Go for it, Poker Face. We're just dollar cost averaging in, so it's that's not that quick. I think the long-term situation is good in my opinion. So, hey Phil, So as Eva so anyhow, we're just figuring that precious metals are going to go higher, especially uh, Eva likes silver. Silver is easier to buy than gold. You don't pay as much premium when you're buying small quantities. You buy $100 worth of gold, you're going to be paying 20, $30 for a premium. On the other hand, you buy $100 worth of silver, and we're paying what now? About
$15 for premium.
about $15. Yeah,
Between 10 and 15, depending on what we buy.
yeah. So, I say we're basically going silver now, but
I did tell you you could buy that yellow stuff this week.
yeah, but we just again we don't have a lot of money. If we had enough to buy, say, a Krugerrand all at once, like $2,000, we want to invest at one time, then we could, get a reasonable premium on that. But yeah, it just doesn't work that well when you're trying to buy small quantities of gold. At least around here, the guys don't have. At least the guys we talk don't have a bunch of small coins, reasonable premiums. We'll be back out mining next week. Those resin cartridges that I did this week, you probably saw the video, most of you. That was just annoying me for quite a while, but anyhow, so I fixed the things that were annoying me. Fixed the leaks, made it so it's easy to continue to fix leaks. And those little valves in between those cartridges were a real pain to work. So by just putting a nipple there and running a hose out, it made it real easy to work them. So it's working just fine. And with the spot test, we should be in pretty good shape to tell when to change cartridges and stuff. So pretty happy with that. I'm running out of stuff to talk about.
Too bad. You got 26 more minutes. You can talk about co-products and how you decide what your mind actually does.
Okay, that's another one. Oh, wonderful, Chris. Another fire over there, huh? We got a lot of smoke here, but as far as I know, all the fires are far away, like over near Idaho. But it must be a pretty big one because visibility's been down to less than 2 miles at times. So it's a lot of smoke. It does make things a little cooler, though. Another thing that Eva ran into, was it on your silver?
Yeah, it was on Wall Street Silver.
On Wall Street Silver.
I read it.
I don't know of anything poker face. It never hurts to ask, though. Somebody else might. But anyhow, apparently the question of what kind of mine is it was something she was trying to explain something. Because there was a big copper mine somewhere. What's the name of that?
KHGM, I believe it is.
KHGM? Never heard of it.
Well, one of the largest copper producers in the world, and is also the second largest silver producer in the world.
One of the largest copper producers, and one of the biggest silver producers. Yeah.
They're pretty much the largest silver producer in the world.
That sounds like a lot of work, Rock. You go ahead and get to sleep when you need to. Never hurts, poker face. But anyhow, so he's like, Well, they produce 6% of the world's silver and only 4% of the world's copper. So why is it called a copper mine? It's like because it's the value, the dollar value.
Between 720,000 tons and 44 million ounces.
Yeah. Anyhow, it's the economic value of your products, and copper is their major product, and silver is a significant co-product. That's very common, very common. Get a good night's rest, Rock. And so a lot of the copper mines make significant amounts of money on the other products like gold, silver, and some of them get molybdenum. Molly? Yeah, molybdenum. Also, hey, blind dude. But though they're not a molybdenum mine, if they just make a fair amount of molybdenum, it's what is your major product? There's another term that's only really used in the mining industry called polymetallic, which is a good description for a lot of mines. It means they have lots of significant products, you know, and like if you had a lead mine with silver and some tin or zinc in it, and you got, 3 or 4 products, and it's kind of a mess. So they will often call that a polymetallic deposit. Or if it's really predominantly, say, lead with silver co-product, lead with silver and zinc, things like that. But thanks, blind dude. Eva did it. It's all her fault. But so that's why, a copper mine doesn't produce just copper in most cases. Gold mines often produce just gold, although they may have minor to significant amounts of silver. If you make 1 ounce of silver for every ounce of gold, you're making, $99 in gold for every dollar in silver. And it's basically a gold mine with minor silver co-product. That's how you would describe it. So anyhow, that's just kind of terms of art there that most people don't get involved with, but which you might want to know. It makes you sound smarter, at least. Let's see. Almost gold stream. That doesn't sound like something I said, although it could happen. Find gold and then look for other minerals and not claim the gold. They would usually, you don't have to specify what the mineral is when you make a claim. You just file it. Now, if it gets into dispute or something, then you may have to say, okay, well, we found this and we found this and we found that to justify your discovery. But like when we file a mining claim, it doesn't say what kind it is, just a mining claim. Okay. And yeah, prospector fill, that's the standard way is primary and secondary products. Yeah, and say it'll cover all the minerals, the hard rock minerals, if you've got it right there. Silver is up 37 cents. Well, the question is, what did it start out with? It's been really beat down, which is fine because we're in a buy-in mood right now. Then they probably didn't have gold on them, blind dude. That's the thing, is that is usually not from like the BLM records. That would be the Bureau of Mines or something else, because the BLM usually does not keep that information. That would be something that, well, in this state, for example, the Montana Bureau of Mines would solicit and catalog that kind of information. The Arizona Bureau of Mines and Mineral Resources did it in Arizona. But that's not the BLM's job. The BLM's job is to keep track of land status and do permitting. Keeping the production records and stuff, that's a different game. So that's why. And there may be gold there, but it might not have been an economic quantity either. Yeah, that happens, Goldstream. Especially as prices change. For example, you might stake a claim for lead. 100 years ago, that 10% lead, that might have been pretty good, and that little 10 ounces per ton silver wasn't a big deal. Now, on the other hand, it might be totally different. Mr. Lodak says that he sees gold moving up to the 1745 area.
How about silver?
Just a second. It's climbing up to 19 is the short-term prediction here. Possible, Paul. He also works for big companies, and they have their methods and what they pay for and stuff. So he's kind of confined to a bit too. I know, for example, I'm just really busy. I've tried some dowsing in the past. It didn't work for me, but I have no idea. Now, Jim, he says he can douse. Yeah. Yeah, USGS reports. Hi, Chris. Yeah, I say I've tried doing dowsing. It didn't seem to work for me. I've seen people who thought they could douse who couldn't, and I've known people who say they can douse that I believe, but I've just never, there was never an opportunity for them to do it while I was there. Can you recover it and turn it into gold you can sell, Paul? Because if you can't sell it, it doesn't do you much good. So that's just an honest question. If you can't detect it, how can you concentrate it? Well, Prospect Phil, I would modify that statement to say, I would believe it if it was done in front of me. I don't have to do it myself. I have to see someone doing it under conditions where I'm confident they didn't have any other way of finding that information. Cool, Tricky. Well, again, if you can't detect it, I don't see how you can concentrate it, because concentrating is a way of detecting. Any buried wire with power signal on it can be doused easy. I lost lunch on it. That's how I learned. Yeah, I've heard that too, the dousing wires and pipes. That's been my experience so far, Goldstream. But I haven't seen anyone do it who I was fairly confident could do it. I've had people do it who they were confident they could do it, but their methodology was highly suspect. I don't believe they were deceitful. I think they sincerely thought they could. And so it, that's another thing too. If just because somebody can't do it doesn't mean they don't believe they can do it. And I knew a guy. He was a good guy. He was a good friend, and he was absolutely confident in his dowsing. And then we go out and check it out. Never found anything using it. And I say, to me, he couldn't do it. Doesn't mean it can't be done. I can't fly a fighter jet. Doesn't mean nobody can. You know. Exactly, prospector Phil. But the thing is, it may very well just be a subconscious thing. You know. So I say, to me, it's just one of those things that I agree. The rods are highly susceptible to the tilting of the hands, but so what are you scrying using a little pendulum thing, and that's done by your hand. The pendulum doesn't move. Your hand moves the pendulum, but it's not necessarily a conscious thing. So your mind is subconsciously controlling the hand. So the question is, what's the information source the mind is getting? My friend, I'm utterly convinced that he would tell himself things, even on a non-conscious level. And I could watch his little hand moving the thing. And he had no reason to BS me because there's nothing in it for him. We go out and we dig a hole and there's nothing there. What good's that to him? I believe he was sincere. Sincere and correct are not the same word. And he would basically be scrying maps. Take a pendulum and there's a map. He says, put his hand on the map. Is there a gold mine here? Is it in this half of the map or this half? And like that. And it'd be, yes, no, that sort of thing. So again, to me, he was self-deluded. Nice guy, but self-deluded in that particular manner. And doesn't harm anybody. Got a lot of fun hiking, learned a lot, but to me, he was not able to douse, but he was firmly convinced he could. On the other hand, I have people who are just like, yeah, I can do that. And these are people that have never bullshitted me on anything. So, okay. That would be an interesting thing to see if we could test smoking. I don't see how you could do it with somebody holding the rods. Because again, without perhaps a high resolution video where you could actually in slow motion watch the motion of the hands. To me, it seems like if it does work, and I believe some people can do it, it's a subconscious thing where their mind, which is sensing the whatever, is actually making it cross. On the other hand, I heard one report. This was from my ex-wife, who I wouldn't consider to be a highly reliable source, but I have no reason to believe she was lying about this particular thing. Said that her father could douse, and one time he got such a really strong indication that the rods got hot, and he dropped them because they were so hot. I said, well, how do you know they were hot and it wasn't just a perception? He said, Well, he wrapped some toilet paper around them and it started smoking. And I see that would be a clear indication of an objective phenomenon occurring and not delusion or anything like that. Yeah, but see, the problem with that, Paul, is if you drop silver on the ground, you know where it is. The way to test that would be for us to go out into a moderately large area, say 15 by 15 or 20 by 20, fairly smooth, like a driveway or whatever, bury a target, and then rake the whole thing so you can't see where the disturbance is, and then get turned loose on it.
I've seen water witches work.
Yeah. Eva says she's seen water witches do their thing. Yeah. Yes, but was it with a dowsing rod, blind dude? I'm suspicious that's a double entendre there. You hate being on a computer too long. Is it physiologically difficult on you, Poker Face? Yeah, Goldstream. That's that sort of thing. Oh yeah, we took it easy. We didn't take it off. Took it easy. I like the live streams. But yeah, another place you could do that Goldstream would be like in a sand trap or on a beach. But someplace, correct, Chris. Like again, you have an area of beach, and you bury a target or two or whatever. For example, it'd be nice to say, I'm going to bury a target and then bury two. Yeah, Jason, a beach. Exactly. But, you know,
the beach.
And then I say bury the target and then rake the whole area so that it's all just rake marks and there's no ability to discern where the thing was done. And then you bring the guy over where he couldn't see what was going on. I mean, he's got to be someplace where he's completely. And then the other people that were involved in planting it need to be either really poker faced or not paying attention or not there so that he can't get any cues from them.
Remove them.
You know, and have somebody else monitor the actual dousing process. See, you do something like that, and you might have some what I'd consider to be reliable results. If you can do that time after time after time, that would be quite fascinating. There's a professor at the University of Arizona in Tucson who's been researching, I don't know what you call it, metaphysical, ESP, phenomena, whatever. And he claims that some of the stuff that he's tested, he's up at 6 Sigma and things like that. He had one guy, for example, that they built a box that had like a 10 by 10 grid of compartments. And there was a cloth, tightly stretched cloth layer or something over the compartments. And then it was a blind box. So the guy'd have to stick his hands inside underneath where he couldn't see his hands, move them back and forth and say, okay, it's in this compartment here. And supposedly the guy was like 98% effective at finding rocks, particular rocks. He could say it's in C12, C8 or whatever, Yeah, the problem with that is, Paul, if you're not involved with the process, you have no way to determine whether or not it was planted there. Not saying they did, not saying they didn't. Merely saying that you have no way to know. It can look pretty convincing, but magicians are good at making things look convincing. So, I can watch what is it? Fool Us with who are those two? Not Siegfried and Roy. But anyhow, those guys, would sit there and magicians go and they would try and fool them. They'd like to say, okay, can you tell how we did this? Penn and Teller, exactly, blind dude. And I like to watch that because, a lot of times they can say exactly how they did it. And other times they're like, we have no idea how you did that. And when you can fool an expert, that means you've got a pretty good technique. But they don't. I don't think I've heard any of them say, "But I did it with magic." This was metaphysical. No, it's a trick. And so I don't have the knowledge to be able to even pick out, learn how a magic, see a magic ring and say, "Oh, I know how he does that." Um, those guys, um, you know, I have to set up the situation, and I have to do it to where I'm in control of everything. And that doesn't mean that somebody still couldn't trick me, but it would be a whole lot more difficult that way. On the other hand, if they're setting up the situation, oh yeah, they could trick me 9 ways from Sunday. Absolutely. Man, so they're starting. I was really sad that we missed the fire on the mountain right here last Sunday. Not yesterday, but a week ago then. Interesting, Zioxio. What did you do to assure that nobody was feeding him information or anything? Yep. See, I guessed it. That's why I said I would have to set up the situation and say it's just one of those things that there's a lot of duplicity out there. So I only tell stuff where it's been proven trustworthy in the past or where I'm able to set it up to where I'm confident I can't be fooled. And even then, I can be fooled, I'm sure. But by not letting them know too much about what the situation is to begin with, it makes it a lot harder for them to think of a way to fool me before it happens. But you notice the Oxio, I picked out the methodology pretty quick. Well, yeah, how do you know everybody's being honest in the room? That's why I said if you got the person who plants the target has to leave the area, and the experimenter number 2 comes in and observes the find, because experimenter number 2 doesn't know where it is either. So they not only couldn't tell him, but they couldn't even subconsciously indicate, like, I'm getting nervous, that sort of thing. Oh, Paul, I'm not worried about saying stuff if I believe it, if I can do it or whatever. I'll say it's like, I can prove it. I'm not afraid of doubters. There's a lot of stuff that I'm confident in that science doesn't have an explanation for right now, but which I've personally observed, that I have no say I can think of no explanation. Sure, Paul. Do you have my address? I'd love to give it a try. Have you ever tried dowsing, little one?
No. I'm
Okay.
not a water witch.
We could try it with Eva too. But yeah, say we could go out to, let's say, someplace with a lot of sand would be nice. I'm trying to think. Okay, Paul. Um, say the nice thing about sand is I can then rake it real well, real easily, and we
Over
go
by
for that.
Canyon Ferry, there's beaches.
Yeah, but they're not sand, right?
Some of them are.
Some of them are. Okay, because the sand beach is what I'd like to do because it makes it real easy to rake it.
Yeah, I think there are some sand beaches there.
I don't know. I'm sure we could find one.
I mean, I absolutely have seen water witches at work. I'm
Yeah.
not one.
I say, and I'm not a doubter in terms of I disbelieve, but I'm skeptical in terms of prove it. You know. Night, Mr. Lodak. Zeoxio, that might be part of it, but it doesn't explain it when they're hitting stuff 1,000 feet down. Paul is going to send me some dowsing rods so we can try dowsing, and we can, for example, go out to a sand beach, and I could bury a 1 ounce silver round, rake, a 15 by 15 foot area smooth, and then, leave the camera there and go off, and Eva could try dousing it, and vice versa.
As long as you remember where you put it.
I think, Seoxio, that the body is the key, not the rod. The rod is just an indicator. And yes, I think that's how it works, is the hands are the ones guiding the rods. Some people say you can see the rods bend. Well, that would be another good objective indication. Take care, Scotty. But I haven't seen that. She's going to take over for a bit.
Hi, everybody. Just so you know, we are now up to a record 11 chicken leg quarters plus 1 drumstick in a 10-pound bag. For anybody who doesn't understand chicken talk, that's a pullet-sized bird. That's a bird that's not even old enough to lay yet. And considering the normal standard for a healthy supply chain in a 10-pound bag of chicken leg quarters is 8 leg quarters, no extra parts. 7 when the birds are a little oversized. Things are getting dicey in chicken land. Just letting you know. Oh, and the larger turkeys are now in the store over a month early. Again, just so you know. Things are not looking good with poultry here. Okay? And coincidentally, a poultry processing plant in California burned down the other day. But, I'm sure that has nothing to do with this particular problem. This particular problem, I'm pretty sure, is feed. I also noticed that the average size of pork chops and loins has gone down significantly, and the average fat to meat ratio in bacon is significantly reduced. So we are now seeing early process happening in pigs. Again, just letting you know. This is a good time to have a freezer and or a pressure canner and or a freeze dryer, stuff like this, Hi, Chris. This is my everyday hat. I am still envisioning making a steampunk top hat fascinator in tinfoil with brass goggles. The only problem with this is, do you know how hard it is to find the right size brass goggles anymore? It's kind of like one of those supply chain things. No idea. Yeah, pullet size. That means babies. Okay? Just to give you an idea on this, an average roaster when it reaches full market weight, should be between 3 and 4 pounds. An average rotisserie chicken, when it reaches full market weight, should be between 2 and 3 pounds. Now ours are 1 1/4 here. Average number of chicken leg quarters in a 10-pound bag should be 8, not 11 plus a drumstick or a thigh. 8. When you see little itty bitty legs, that means they were taking off chickens that were way, way early processed. Two problems with this. Number one, of course, that means that you're not getting the full value of the bird because you actually end up getting more bone to meat ratio that way. But the other problem is the hatchery side of it, because these things are timed very tightly so that as chickens move out of the factory and to processing, brand new chickens come in from the hatcheries and growing pens. Now, if the chickens that are moving out are way too young, that means the chickens that are supposed to be coming in haven't had time to grow yet either, which means serious chick shortages all over the place. Not good. Okay. Paul, I am looking forward to trying dowsing. I am not at all
Disbelieving?
I'm not at all disbelieving. I have seen water witches at work. I personally have never shown a talent for it, but then again, not everybody can. I will be happy to find out though. Chris, I prefer to see my bacon and my pork at the right lean to fat ratio because that means you had a healthy animal that was fed well and was on its market curve when it got slaughtered. At the size pork chops and the leanness of bacon we're seeing now, some of these pigs are being processed anywhere from 4 to 5 months early. Nobody processes meat that far off the market curve unless they have no choice. Why they might have no choice? Well, it might have something to do with the persistent shortage of livestock feed and the fact that both poultry and pigs rely almost exclusively on commercial feed. It might have something to do with the incipient railroad strikes that are being threatened for a couple of weeks from now that the Biden administration never addressed. It might have something to do with the general feed shortage that the Biden administration also didn't address when it was brought to their attention by none other than Tyson, #1 chicken producer in the country, who sounded the alarm on the issue of there's no chicken feed about a month and a half ago. Oh, what? You didn't hear that on the mainstream news? Why, I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. Hmm. You know? Yeah, like I said, Paul, I'm really looking forward to it. Yes, Eoxio, veal is pretty good if you happen to like veal. Veal is absolutely great. Um, Eoxio, I don't know what feed costs would adjust to. I mean, personally, I think it's well worth exploring because we have a serious meat shortage coming. And the thing with the meat supply chain is if it breaks, if it snaps anywhere along that chain, there'll be meat in the supermarket on Monday. Then there'll be a whole run of sale meat that's really undersized. And then the following week, there will be no meat at all. And guess what? It takes quite a while to grow a chicken. Well, not specifically a chicken, okay? Chickens actually grow very fast. But a cow, for instance, will take anywhere from 18 to 22 months to get from calf to market weight, depending on what you're slaughtering for. And yes, it takes more fuel to make corn ethanol than can be recovered from the ethanol in an engine. The other thing I noticed around here recently is our silage corn crop is looking a little bit sad. It will still make silage, but it will not make top quality silage. Fortunately, our cows are primarily range fed, and the winter alfalfa crop that is already being baled up and sitting there is bumper. Absolutely bumper. So that is cool. Yeah, we'll always have spam, which, by the way, is spiced ham. As long as we have pigs, we will have spam. And also, by the way, have you seen the price of that stuff lately? Ouch. So on to mining. Copper price. Chile Codelco face another lost decade of output growth. Note the word there was decade. After an early jobs report bump on Friday in New York, the copper market turned negative by lunchtime, marking its sixth straight session of losses. December contracts for the orange metal are now trading down 8% for the week. The carnage was evident among copper stocks, with top producers suffering double-digit losses over the last week of trading. Freeport-McMoRan gave up 12%, Southern Copper declined 11%, First Quantum Minerals fell by 18%, Antofagasta lost 11%, Teck Resources 10%, Glencore 12%, and KGHM has lost 18% on the Warsaw Exchange. Disappointing manufacturing data in China. I wonder how much that has to do with the pervasive lockdowns and bank runs and riots. I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. Disappointing manufacturing data in China was behind the recent pullback after PMIs from the country, responsible for 55% of global copper consumption, unexpectedly slipped into contractionary territory. Totally unexpected. Absolutely unexpected. But worries about global growth, inflation, and interest rates, and an energy crisis in Europe have been hounding the metal for months. The copper price has now fallen by one-third since hitting all-time highs early in March above $5 a pound. Amid all the economic gloom and doom, a bombshell announcement this week by the world's number one copper producer appears to have gone largely unnoticed or ignored by large-scale speculators on futures markets who have been net short on copper for the last 7 weeks. Chile's state-owned Codelco last week said it expects output to reach between 1.49 million and 1.5 million tons this year, down from a previous forecast of 1.6 million tons. On Wednesday, Codelco chairman Maximo Pacheco told the newspaper 2023 guidance is 1.5 million tons, but significantly there is no prospect of an improvement. For the 5-year period between 23 and 27, the best forecast we have is 1.5 million tons on average. Structural progress to maintain output levels are effectively behind schedule and over budget. The best forecast would constitute the lowest output in at least a decade and compares the average attributable output of 1.74 million since 2010, according to data from sister company Mining Intelligence. Codelco's output next year would more than 400,000 tons below its 2015 peak. A 400,000 TPA mine would be the world's 5th largest according to 2021 production tables. Codelco's struggles are Chile's struggles: water scarcity, declining grades, depletion rates, skinny project pipelines, industrial action, taxation increases, and regulatory uncertainty. Really now. In Chile, perish the thought. And ever-expanding capex budgets. In 2021, Chile produced a quarter of the world's primary copper output at 21 million tons, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. On a proportional basis, that makes Chile's position in the world of copper on par not with Saudi Arabia's in crude oil, but with the combined output of the 13 members of OPEC. That's a lot of copper. In a recent report, BMO Capital Markets says Chile is now heading toward 2 lost decades in terms of copper output growth. Following the steady ramp up in the 1990s and early 2000s, output levels have stagnated, with the projections of 6 MTPA plus of output never coming to pass. And this is not for lack of investment, but with a number of large new mines coming to market over this period. Rather, it's a function of decline at existing assets. BMO notes in particular, SXEW production in Chile continues to trend inexorably lower and is now 500,000 pounds below peak levels seen in 2009. Well, that's rather ominous. For anyone who missed the news several months ago, we still have a drastic, critical shortage of transformers. Just so I mean, if we have a bad hurricane season, there are certain types of transformers that are pretty much ubiquitous and quite a few others that are critical but slightly less common. Um, the delivery time on them is now stretching out to 3+ years because COVID, I guess. I mean, that is the new primary excuse for everything until the end of time, just so everybody knows. Iron ore price climbs after sell-off spurred by China COVID woes, and mining title applications in Colombia to include stricter environmental considerations. That's pretty good. Metal plants feeding Europe's factories face an existential crisis. Well, actually, yes, the largest aluminum smelter in Europe is going to be shutting down here relatively shortly, the way things are going. For some bizarre and unaccountable reason, Europe is having an energy crisis. This may or may not have something to do with Vlad the Impaler, who either today or yesterday told Europe that unless the sanctions get lifted, that Nord Stream 1 thingy that they like so much ain't going to be open again. You know. Now, the goddesses of two minds here. Number one, it is very, very, very rude to take away people's source of energy. Okay. And that's very, very rude. Not that there wasn't justification. But on the other hand, if you own a resource, whatever that resource may be, you have the right to decide to sell who that resource is. And if you have dozens of other customers that are people who have not pissed you off, then there's no reason for you to want to deal with a bunch of Karens when you can deal with other people who will actually hand you money. But on the other hand, we're back again to the fact that it's very rude to cut off people's fuel supply with winter coming up. But on the other hand, it should be noted that all these countries in Europe that have coal plants said they weren't going to fire up their coal plants again because, of course, it will kill the planet. And they're not going to fire up their nuclear plants because that will kill the planet. So apparently, gasoline and oil that are mined elsewhere don't kill the planet if you buy them and bring them in. That's pretty much the goddess's take on this. We're going to discount all those wind farms and solar panels because, well, as we saw in England this last week, these wind farms apparently blow over occasionally rather than actually produce power. I'm sure that's just a very random thing, but it was rather hilarious and interesting to see. And yeah, there really isn't much in the way of solar power that far north in winter, and well, the usual things. But of course, there's all this green energy is necessary to save the planet. It should be noted that in the middle of this, the German government told their people, whenever you're taking your ice cold shower in your very cold apartment, you should be saying, "Take that, Putin." Yeah, okay, take that, Putin. I mean, Vlad the Invader is not one of my favorite people, okay? But really, this is getting a little ridiculous. In the aluminum industry, closing a smelter is an agonizing decision. Once power is cut and production pots settle back to room temperature, it can take many months and tens of millions of dollars to bring them back online. Yet Norsk Hydro ASA is preparing this month to do exactly that at a huge plant in Slovakia. And it's not the only one. European productions dropped to the lowest level since the 1970s. And industry insiders say the escalating energy crisis is now threatening to create an extinction event across large swathes of the region's aluminum production. Well, derp. The explanation lies in aluminum's nickname, congealed electricity. The metal, used in a huge range of products from car frames and soda cans to ballistic missiles, is produced by heating raw materials until they dissolve, then running an electric current through the pot, making it massively power intensive. 1 ton of aluminum requires about 15 megawatt hours of electricity, enough to power 5 homes in Germany for a year. In an interesting side note, did you know it would take you 30,000 years to count to 1 trillion if you counted one number every second, 24/7? Yeah, just remember that. Some smelters are protected by government subsidies, long term electricity deals, or access to their own renewable power, but the rest face an uncertain future. History has proven once aluminum smelters go away, they don't come back, said Mark Hansen, chief executive of metals trading house Concord Resources. There's an argument which extends beyond employment. This is an important base metal commodity. It goes into aircraft, weapons, transport, and machinery. As production drops, the hundreds of European manufacturers that turn metal into parts for German cars or French airplanes are left increasingly reliant on imports that could get costlier. Some buyers
From
are also
Russia?
trying to avoid metal from Russia, which is usually a big supplier to Europe. Hmm. Well, the goddess is momentarily speechless at these people. The industry says it urgently needs government support to survive. Oh, wow. Considering the government put them in this mess in the first place, in large part, that seems a little bit bizarre. However, any measures like fixed price caps to keep power hungry plants running may be difficult to justify while consumers face soaring power bills and the threat of rationing and blackout looms. The woes of the aluminum sector offer a striking example of what's playing out in Europe's energy intensive industries. Across the continent, fertilizer makers, cement plants, steel mills, and zinc smelters are also shutting down rather than pay eye watering prices for gas and electricity. Most worryingly for the region's manufacturing sector, it may not simply be a case of shutting down for the winter. Power prices for 2024 and 2025 have also soared, threatening the long term viability of many industries. At recent market prices, the annual power bill for the Savalco smelter would be around 2 billion with a B euros, according to Chief Executive Officer Milan Vasily. Slovalco decided to mothball the plant due to a combination of surging energy prices and a lack of emissions compensation that is available to smelters elsewhere in the bloc. Restarting the plant, which could take up to a year, will only be possible through some combination of cheaper power, a sharp rise in aluminum prices, and additional government support from the same government that screwed them over in the first place. Okay, Vasily said in an interview this week at the site. This is a genuine existential crisis, said Paul Voss, Director General of European Aluminum, which represents the region's biggest producers and processors. We really need to sort something quite quickly, otherwise, there will be nothing left to fix. Combined with import tariffs that Europe's struggling producers have fought hard to put in place, the rising costs of energy could leave manufacturers facing an increasingly large premium over prevailing international prices in order to secure supply, in a further blow to Europe's competitive standing in the global industrial economy. There will be nothing left to fix. Producers of other metals like zinc and copper are hurting badly too, but the vast amount of power needed to make aluminum have made the sector particularly unprofitable. In case you haven't noticed, aluminum cans here have shrunk by about 25% in weight as well. Be careful when you transport them. They blow up a lot easier now. In Germany, the power needed to produce a ton of aluminum would have cost roughly $4,200 in the spot market on Friday, after topping more than $10,000 last month, according to Bloomberg calculations. The London Metal Exchange futures price was around $2,300 a ton on Friday. That math does not work. That means curtailments to look to set to accelerate over the winter. Whenever we get downturns in economic growth and smelter margins come under pressure, we see European smelters shutting a decent portion of capacity, said Uday Patel, senior research manager at Wood Mackenzie. When things improve, there are some smelters that never come back online. Wood Mackenzie estimates Europe has already lost about 1 million tons of its annual aluminum production capacity. Patel said he expects that about 25% may be curtailed permanently. Another 500,000 tons is highly vulnerable to closure, Wood Mackenzie estimates. The curtailments have had little impact on aluminum prices, which have fallen by more than 40% since the peak in March, as traders brace for a global slump in demand that could be even more severe. But while Europe's production losses account for about 1.5% of global supply, they will leave consumers in Europe increasingly reliant on imports that will be costlier and carry a heavier carbon footprint. So we're back to that carbon footprint thing again. Already, European manufacturers are paying hefty delivery fees to get aluminum shipped to local ports, and further increases could leave them in an increasingly uncompetitive position relative to peers across Asia and the US. The energy crisis is also rippling quickly down the supply chain to companies that buy aluminum from smelter and transform it into specialist products used in everything from cars to food packaging. They use significant amounts of gas in the process, and many are looking to pass on their surging energy costs via contractual surcharges that could bake in additional costs for manufacturers for years to come. Hmm. Perhaps that's part of the reason that all of Europe's PPI numbers that have come out are in the double digits, some of them as high as 50% increase year over year. The smelter curtailments are only the tip of the iceberg because you also have downstream players who are buying prime metal and transforming it into products for use in sectors like beverage cans and automobiles, said Michael Van Hoey, a senior partner at McKinsey and Company. These companies have typically seen a tenfold increase in their energy bills and will not be able to fully pass on those costs without some degree of demand destruction or import substitution. As Slavalko Vasily, who has worked at the company since 1989, is hopeful it will be able to reopen the plant once energy prices fall, but acknowledges the risk it could remain offline for years. Something must be done if we don't want to destroy European aluminum production. If Europe considers aluminum as a strategic metal, then aluminum plants should have guaranteed prices of electricity. So let's see if we can follow this logic here. Europe, for bizarre and unaccountable reasons, decides they have to go green. As part of this going green thing, European governments started dismantling their own domestic energy production capabilities and shutting down their energy grids and becoming more and more reliant on their neighbor to the east, who they never liked in the first place. And then, when their neighbor in the east decided that they were going to do something rather exceedingly rude, not entirely without provocation, but still exceedingly rude, Europe, and the United States, I might add, decided that they were going to sanction this dude. This dude controls all their energy, controls most of the strategic metals that are used in Europe, has smelters up the wazoo to process metals, runs a country that covers 13 time zones and is pretty much self-sufficient. This is not the kind of person you generally want to get in a peeing contest with, at least not very carefully, because he has a very, very big bladder. Just, you know. So, here we are with a Europe that somehow deluded all their people into the idea of we're going to have this marvelous green future, even though it involves cutting down a few first growth forests, that have been around like 700 or 800 years. But that's a minor sacrifice to make. And, even though it involves being reliant on energy and food to somebody that we consistently badmouth and treat like crap. And then when the poo-poo hits the oscillating device here, the Europeans double down and say, well, we can't start the coal plants again because climate change. We can't fire up the nuclear plants again because climate change. Macron, who lives in one of the most nuclear intensive countries in the world, sitting with a ton of green power, was talking the other day about how France, for Ukraine, needs to cut their energy use by 10%. No, they've already cut their energy use several times. This is getting a little bit bizarre and ridiculous here. When the inevitable chickens come home to roost here, and Europe finds itself facing an unprecedented energy crisis, an unprecedented fertilizer crisis, an unprecedented winter crisis of all kinds, and unprecedented inflation that pretty much rivals what happened before World War II, the companies that are the hapless recipients of this, and the citizens that are the hapless recipients of this malicious level of idiocy, say the government needs to help us. Well, as we're beginning to discover here in the United States of America, when the government dunks you in the sewage in the first place, expecting them to fish you out is probably not a reasonable expectation. And knowing that they dumped you in the sewage in the first place, if they do fish you out, why are you going to be grateful and kiss their butt? Speaking of the United States of America, I am sure that a few of you saw Lord Malarkey's fascinating red sermon in front of Independence Hall. And I'm sure that the goddess was not the only person who was reminded of a very nice mashup between V for Vendetta, a certain Charlie Chaplin type dude from Germany in the 1930s with the whole fisty shaky thing, and Pink Floyd The Wall's concert scene. That was one scary, scary speech. The goddess is getting very worried about these people. Just saying, I'm just very, very worried about these people. Just, it's not looking good. For our friends across the pond in England, it is looking particularly bad. Their housing crisis in terms of energy is horrific. There are now people in Ireland and parts of England that are reporting, anecdotally, of course, but the numbers are growing, that people from the local energy organizations basically have been barging into their houses and taking away their regular meters and installing their pay-as-you-go meters. Now, I don't know if anybody knows this, but I'll tell you anyway because I think it's kind of cool. Apparently, in the United Kingdom, there are many people that have pretty much the equivalent of a coin machine, I suppose you could call it, in their house. You prepay for X amount of energy. And when that energy runs out, you need to deposit more money. Well, considering that the energy costs in England have gone up almost 500% in the last year and a half, there are a whole shit ton of people who can't deposit money right now. And things are going to get really, really bad over there if this continues. There's not much that can be said beyond that, but this is a horrific crisis, and a large, large percentage of the blame for said crisis belongs on the governments that responded in such an idiotic manner to very rude actions by a certain Vlad the Invader, which were triggered by a certain country deciding to blatantly violate agreements that had been in place for a couple of decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, stuff like that. So yeah, they went and hoisted their petard, whatever the hell it means in the first place, but it's never the politicians that suffer. For our Canadian friends, have you seen the size of Justin Trudeau's grocery bill? Almost $8,000 in food eaten by Sox 2.0 and company in a month. It's never your politicians that suffer. It is never the eat Z bugs, Klaus Schwab, WEF types that suffer. It is the hapless citizens that actually are the ones that suffer. And it's going to get really bad in Europe. I'd say it's pretty much going to be a race to see who collapses first over there. But it's getting bad. You know it's getting bad when the British pound sterling is on a parity with the US dollar, which is the most useless piece of paper in the world. For some reason, people have a tremendous amount of faith in dollars. The goddess does not. Speaking of which, as you've probably noticed, silver and gold are still on sale, which is a damn good thing because it's time to back up the truck. We need to get our precious metals because if you don't hold it, you don't own it. Quite simple. And yes, you want to hold it and you want to own it because that's the only way to preserve at least some portion of your time. That is what inflation is stealing from you. That is what taxation is stealing from you. Your time, your most valuable asset, the one that you have no idea how much or how little you have left. The only true wealth is your time. And inflation steals it, taxation steals it, regulation steals it, and I'm pretty sure that the theft is going to get dramatically more noticeable over the next 6 months or so. The goddess has been speaking to people who do chart things, and some of the chart people are in the to the moon category, triple digit silver, $5,000 an ounce gold. The consensus of opinion seems to be coalescing around silver reaching its next strong support point at $50 an ounce and gold reaching its next strong support point at $2,200 an ounce. A lot of that probably depends on how bad winter gets around the world. And at the rate things are going, winter is not going to be very nice around the world. Just saying. Bye.
Oh.
You can go back through the comments and see what everybody's saying.
Blinded because they're so weak. We had a soda can explode in the cab of the truck the other day.
Just out of the blue. Wasn't even that hot. Went pop.
I don't know, Chris. Somewhat like us, maybe. Exactly like us, probably not a good idea.
Pet food cans will be affected by that too, by the way, people.
What?
Cat food cans will be affected by that too.
Oh, cat food cans. Like I care.
If it gets bad enough, the Vienna sausage cans have to be watched.
Sean, I don't. There may be other people. Up here, the problem is that for several months a year, it would be pretty much uninhabitable because of the low temperatures. I mean, it's not unusual for it to go 1 or 2 weeks and never get above freezing. It is unusual to get below 20 below zero. Down to 10 below, fairly common, but that's considered kind of on the cold side. But that makes it a lot more difficult to camp than, say, in Arizona. And with the price of fuel, snowbirding it will become much more difficult if you have social disruptions, which in a serious economic situation seem inevitable,
We're already seeing them around the world.
then, just traveling from point A to point B could become problematic whether or not you can afford the fuel. So I really don't know where the best would be, because you got to look at climate, political, social, and economic stability, and the availability of food and energy. So, someplace like, say, Kansas might be a better situation than someplace else. Up here in Montana, we have an indoor location to live and a few other things which make our situation different than a snowbird camper type of thing. But I would try and avoid the extreme climbs and worry about food and social stability. They're already having major demonstrations in Europe.
They're having major demonstrations in 60 countries around the world.
Eva says 60 countries now.
When last I counted.
I say it's a very extraordinary situation. I've never seen anything in my life where so many countries have so consistently and so uniformly done such stupid things. Usually there's some place to go to get away from the idiocy over here. But like in Europe, boy, I don't know what's going to happen to those guys. Over here, I feel it's likely to be on a state by state basis, where certain states with reasonable legislatures and governors enact a lot more on BLM land. To live on your claim continuously, you would have to have a plan of operations, okay, legally. You can stay there for 14 days continuously, and then you have to leave to someplace at least 20 miles away for another number of days. Anyone out there know what that number of days is that you have to be gone? And then you could come back and stay for another 14 days, I believe. But you have to break it up. And so if you had like two claims a certain distance apart, I think in Arizona it was 20 miles. That, Adam, I would say you need to start working on networking. Become a person that people trust to help out when they need it and stuff like that. And so that there's always somebody who'll be happy to have you hanging out. Number one, honesty. Number two, reliability. In a shit hits the fan scenario, you need to be someone that your word is your bond and you do what you said you were going to do, because that's going to put you ahead of the crowd, and that's going to give you that trust that allows you to get into the scenarios where they're like, we could use an extra hand here to keep an eye on the place from say 10 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning. Can you stay awake while we get some nice restful sleep? And then, you can help out in the morning chores, sleep through the day, help maybe with the evening chores or whatever. And then, you stay awake, sort of thing. But if you're the person that can be trusted to house sit, to pull guard duty, to feed the critters, everything like that, so that other people can do other things, that could be quite valuable. But integrity is what you're going to need to open those doors. Okay? So you want your reputation to be unblemished. Okay? It doesn't mean you're perfect, but people have to know what you are. For example, if you're not a good mechanic, I can turn a wrench, I'm an okay parts changer. Don't say I'm a mechanic. Say, I can, change a tire. I can do basic mechanical stuff, change oil, this, that, or the other, do basic house repairs. Don't oversell yourself. What's that thing? Under promise and over deliver. So again, the main thing is that the person who you talk to, that you agree to do something, is confident that you will in fact do that. I don't know about fun. It's going to be very interesting. Most of you have probably heard the ancient Chinese curse, may you live in interesting times, because it's going to be very interesting. In the United States, I would expect issues around the election. No matter which way the election goes, somebody's going to be upset. And unless there are extraordinary measures taken to assure everybody of the accuracy of the election, you're going to have a lot of people on one side or the other or both really questioning what happened. That's not a good thing, especially in a stressful situation. With prices going up, supplies going down, that's not the time for people to be stressing out about stuff, because it, like Adam says, a powder keg. I agree. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios I see happening this election. None of them lead to a nice, peaceful end game. I mean, let's throw some possibilities. The Republicans win in a landslide legitimately. The left ain't going to believe it. They've already said they're going to try and cheat and this and that and the other. The left is going to believe it was stolen. They're going to be all pissed off. If the left wins in a landslide, the right ain't going to believe it. And I don't think they're going to win in a landslide. It doesn't make any sense to me. If, let's say, whoever has power, the other side is going to be upset about that, either correctly or incorrectly. But say without a lot of effort going into assuring people that, yes, that is the actual results, and having enough verification processes and stuff that, and unless you're truly insane, you would say, well, okay, well, at least we know what the vote tallies are. And even then, I think we have a lot of insane people that aren't going to believe it no matter what they are. That creates a situation. Not good. Not good at all. So I would say we've got at most 2 months before things start getting really interesting. And I've asked Eva to tell me when she thinks I should start packing my pistol again. Over in Tucson, used to do it all the time. Well, as soon as you take a decision to bypass the legal process, all bets are off. And a lot of people understand that. That's why we don't want to just go out there and riot or this or that or the other. We also, I mean, I don't know about you. I personally believe the other side is waiting for us to do something stupid so they can send in the troops, so to speak. If you looked at that speech our beloved leader gave the other day, I'm now a clear and present danger to the United States. I'm pretty sure I heard that phrase, a clear and present danger. Let me just Google that for a second, because I believe it has a specific legal meaning, a clear and present danger meaning. Doctrine adopted by the Supreme Court of the United States to determine under what circumstances limits can be placed on the First Amendment, freedom of speech, press, or assembly. The test was replaced in 1969 with the Brandenburg versus Ohio imminent lawless action test. Yeah.
So if we ever hear him use the phrase imminent lawless action.
Yeah. Say these are the the kind of phrases where, in the case of the Tom Clancy movie, for example, Clear and Present Danger was what the government used to justify extrajudicial intervention in Central America, South America. That may be possible, Sean, although this newest batch of vaccines that's being attempted to be rolled out in the United States has not been tested on human beings.
It was tested on mice.
The mice are still alive, which should, of course, give us all tremendous confidence that one can accurately extrapolate results in mice to results in human beings. Yeah. So, again, interesting times. And that's another good point, Sean. Let us assume, just for the sake of argument, because this is YouTube, if it was to be found out that there was significant, widespread negative effects of certain medical interventions, what would be the psychological reaction of the people who either had been negatively affected or whose people close to them were seriously negatively affected? That could also lead to societal instability, which would then, say, once the rules go out, yeah, I think that's a nice understatement there, Sean. Depending upon the exact situation, anything from severe annoyance all the way up to blind rage. And there's a guy on YouTube I know whose brother died after getting the jab, and he says, what I'd like to do is basically go do something to these people, but then I'd wind up in jail and that wouldn't help anybody. Once people reach a certain level of desperation, that no longer tends to restrict their behavior, which then leads us to a very unpleasant place. Now, it may be more pleasant than the results of doing something else, but nevertheless, now all your options are bad ones. That's what I see, Sean. I agree. I mean, I'm 66 years old. I've never seen anything like this. So, I say, that's why my wife and I moved up to Montana in the middle of winter a year and a half ago.
The goddess is younger and hasn't either.
Yeah. And too many results to display. Yeah. On your research, yeah. And we haven't had the vaccine either, but all the rest of my family has. And both of her sons have because of their work. And I say this is concerning. There's a lot of information and too little thorough, indisputable investigation for my comfort. And that's like I say with the elections. In the last election, you see what happens when, instead of saying, okay, you've got questions, let's answer them, you get, fuck you. We won fair and square. That's the end of the discussion. That doesn't resolve the disagreement. If I go to the store and they ring up my order and it doesn't sound right, and I go, excuse me, that doesn't sound right. Can we check this out? What would you do if the clerk said, no, I didn't make a mistake. That's it. End of discussion. I don't know about you. I'd walk out. It's like, excuse me. That doesn't sound right to me. I mean, usually I'm wrong. I understand this. There's usually something I haven't taken proper account of. Perfectly normal. But there have been times where it's like, no, something's wrong here, and I've been right. So you just get the receipt and you take a look. You double check. By doing that, you reassure everybody on all sides of the transaction that the transaction is legitimate. That is terribly important. You know, whenever you have legislation, elections, anything like that, if a large number of people believe that that process was illegitimate, they're not going to voluntarily cooperate. And that's not a good thing. Roberts asks, is there some kind of digital currency replacing the dollar before year end? I haven't heard anything. You, little one?
It's in the pipeline. I believe it's probably significantly farther along in the pipeline than they're claiming it is because it's our government. And there are several constitutional impediments they're going to have to get around here.
Okay. Basically, she thinks
Only the
they're
Federal
working on it.
Reserve can actually do it without a constitutional thing coming out.
Yeah, I say so. There will be resistance. We'll
Of
see what-
course, no sane person keeps their fiat in a bank to begin with.
Diversify is the recommendation. Don't put all your eggs in any basket, especially as the truckers found out in Canada in a bank that the government can tell freeze the account. Doesn't do you any good. Scientists said today there is always room for skepticism and questions. Of course, Paul. Science is all about questioning, and by answering the questions, you learn more. If you don't know enough to answer the question well, then you need to learn more. You know, when somebody says, well, how much gold is in the ground? Well, I don't know. Well, guess what? You need to learn some more. They don't seem like it to me, Ed. Yes, exactly. So they're being denied their rights, are they not? Where to buy silver for the lowest above spot? We usually go to the local coin store who has reasonable premiums. Where's the best place?
Online, if
Walmart
you want
online?
a paper trail, you'll go to Find Bullion Prices, I believe it is, .com, and they'll show you who's got the lowest premiums at the moment. I would also recommend signing up for the newsletters or downloading the apps on the biggest sites like Monument Metals, SD Bullion,
Everyone hearing her?
moneymetals.com, because you will get flash sales and specials that happen.
Yeah.
Or you can join Reddit, go to Wall Street Silver, and we have discounts for apes.
Okay. Bullion prices? What?
FindBullionPrices.com, I believe it is. You can look it up.
FindBullionPrices.com. I know Walmart was also selling silver at really low premiums if you bought in quantity.
Walmart.com, of all places, sells AppMex silver direct from AppMex at lower than AppMex website prices. Be sure you use the link to AppMex from Walmart. There are third-party sellers that are selling crap and counterfeits, just like there are on Amazon.
Okay. I hope you heard that. Make sure you to go from Walmart, go directly to the AppMex website through Walmart, and you'll get a better price.
Well, it'll say shipping directly from AppMex in the thing. It's usually tubes of buffalo rounds.
Yeah. Okay, Sean. Understood, Sean. Exactly. Yeah, Goldstream. AppMex is what is AppMex, little one?
American Precious Metals Exchange.
American Precious Metals Exchange, blind dude.
And by the way, they have horrible, horrible premiums if you go to their website. If you want their metals, go to Walmart and find anything they're selling that is shipped direct from AppMex.
Okay. According to her, they have excessive premiums if you go directly to them, but if you go through Walmart and buy direct from them through Walmart, you get a pretty good price. Okay. And
fast delivery.
And quick delivery. Always buy physical metal. Do not buy metal that somebody else is going to hold for you in a vault somewhere. BS. Get it in your hands.
Is really good too.
She says Monument Metals also usually has pretty good prices.
And SD. S is in Sam, D is in David, bullion.
And Sierra Delta bullion, SD bullion. Okay. And the other things, in any kind of chance of supply chain disruptions, you want to make sure that anything critical to your survival or safety you have in sufficient quantities. For example, medications. If you have a condition that requires a particular medication, get more of it ahead of time. If you live near Mexico, a lot of times you can do that, but get some extra in your possession. Like, say a diabetic. Well, their insurance will only pay for so much insulin. Well, the question is, can you get some insulin like from Mexico or something and get a month or two extra and then just stay a month or two ahead of the game that way?
Walmart has the cheapest prices on insulin if you can use the kinds they sell cheap.
Yeah. Ivermectin was put on the NIH website really quietly. As what, Paul?
That's a therapeutic.
Therapeutic for?
For COVID.
For COVID, huh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They didn't tell anybody, but it is there.
Amazing. Yes, Artie, there are fakes, there are charlatans and stuff, and you really have to do your due diligence. But that's why Eva's done some research on that. Walmart, the high cost or low prices, yes, but in an emergency, you do what you got to do for yourself and your family. These kind of situations, thank God, rarely come up in the United States of America. Hurricanes, stuff like that. But you bet. And Keith says, yes, Eva. But they happen all the time other places. Supply chains are not reliable in Uganda, probably. Okay. So there are ways of dealing with this. People can survive. Don't forget, people survived World War II. People survived, they talk about the great Spanish flu. Well, most people survived.
Yeah, it only killed 30% worldwide.
Nah, it wasn't 30%. Nowhere close. The Black Death did. But even then, if the Black Death killed 30%, that means 70% survived. And I mean, the last time I got in the lower 50 percentile, I can't remember. So I figure as long as half the people survive, I've got a good shot at it. And that's my health gets me first. That's another thing. Try and deal with all significant health issues as quickly and permanently as possible. Okay, if there's something that's going to be a problem and you can get it fixed now would be a much better time to get it fixed than next year.
Look at what happened with your dentist.
Yeah. Yeah, I went to a dentist to see about a teeth cleaning. I've now got an appointment scheduled for next June. Yep. So you need to think ahead. You need to think of what's critical. And if you can, try and make yourself lighter on your feet. I forgot who it was who said they live in California. As a state, that's a bad place to be, but there's some places in California that are a lot better than others. For example, Bishop, California would probably be a whole lot better than Los Angeles. Okay. Um, all of these things, I don't know anyone out there who's really got a good explanation for the price of gold, except this is manipulation. Because under normal circumstances, these sort of things would be driving the price up. Okay. So I tend to, and that's what Eva says. It's all manipulation. There's reasons why the big banks and governments want to keep the price down for the moment. But that's why we're buying precious metals, what we can. And, we think it's a good buying opportunity right now. It's personal opinion. Research it yourself, do your due diligence, don't overextend yourself. I have no idea, Roberts. I have no idea. There's just so many things right now you're looking at just going like, oh my God, that could kill us too. The one thing I'm not worried about is freaking global warming. Okay? The globe's been hotter than it is now in historic times. Wasn't a huge problem. 20 by 30 feet effective area, about 50 tons. But I say it's just bizarre. And if you've got a mortgage that's a reasonable fixed rate, be thankful. Paul Cooper says 209 gold and the asset-backed currencies are trading on the Forex back screens since a week ago. 209 gold? Not sure what that means, Paul. Asset-backed currencies. Yeah, the Russians, the BRICS, are working on creating essentially an alternative economic system. And that means that we can go down the tubes and it won't take them with us. That's interesting. That's why junk U.S. silver coins are useful, because they're pretty easy to tell they're real. I don't know. We're trying to figure out what this is. It may be from sunlight or something. $209 country currencies. Okay. Say, I really don't know. This is unprecedented. Again, you always see a few countries doing something crazy, but not all the Western ones at once. Anyone know a rational Western country right now? Maybe Austria, but of the big ones, like the G7, G20, Canada, the United States, Australia, New Zealand, the vast majority of the European countries, with maybe one or two holdouts a little bit. This is just crazy. It really is. Yeah, that's it. They're setting up another financial system, Paul. Exactly. To run in parallel with the current one. But then if the current one collapses, the dollar back, the Western currency, then they can just decouple and they're fine. Probably a lot of good stuff in Greenland. I would agree. BR. I don't think I can afford the purchase price, though. If you can, let me know. We'll see if we can work out a deal. I can maybe help out. Yeah, you have to have a banking system, Ed, because the complex exchanges of goods and commodities that occur in a modern economic system have to have some method of exchanging value rapidly and reliably. So you need to have a monetary system and a banking system and a credit system, things like that. And I mean, Putin and Alia have taken this opportunity to say, hey, you guys want to do without us? Watch this. Hold my beer. You know? Oh, but we got to manufacture all those windmills and solar cells and stuff like that. And electric cars. They need batteries. Um, yeah, we need mining. Well, I think we're going to be needing food and fertilizer more than we're going to be needing metals in general in the very near future. Because if you do have an economic dislocation of a substantial nature, as a general, your demand will fall, especially for the non essentials. People won't have money. I mean, look at the people in England. Are they going to be buying McDonald's? No, they'll be lucky if they can buy ramen noodles, because of the damn electric bill. And um, that's going to mean that Nintendo, I don't know, if there even is a Nintendo anymore, but your Xboxes and your new cell phones and new cars and stuff like that. Yeah, nobody's going to have the money for that crap. Well, some people will, but not enough to keep up the demand in anywhere near where it is now. So you're going to see these optional things become either unavailable or a lot cheaper, whereas the necessities are going to go up in price and become, in many cases, much harder to find. For example, food. Um, in Arizona, southern Arizona, you can't grow vegetables too well because you need water. And if you hadn't heard, Lake Mead's going down. But in places like the southeast, you could start growing vegetables, corn, things like that in your backyard. Victory gardens, stuff like that. And the more self-sufficient we all are, the less we have to panic about. There may be other people panicking, but we don't have to panic. That's a very nice thing about being reasonably well prepared. Okay. And I think that that's really critical right now when you don't know what's going to happen. The rulers of Egypt went to Switzerland, see their money. Crazy alien pictures on their money. Have no clue, Paul. But say, I have no idea what's going to go on. And this all, do they call them black swan events, little one?
Yeah.
Yeah. This all doesn't take into account black swan events, the things you don't see coming. I mean, we can see coming a freight train. There may be a plane falling out of the sky or a meteorite or a lightning bolt or something else going to land too. That's completely unpredictable. Even I don't have a great fear of death. Okay. In her case, she's been dead twice. She says it ain't bad. In my case, I just had to deal with a situation a long time ago where I had to deal with the potential of being murdered for an extended period of time. And it taught me you just do the best you can. Don't worry about it. You're either going to win or not. And therefore, worrying doesn't help you. Losing sleep doesn't help you. You need to get your sleep. You need to keep your mind clear. That gives you the best chance of getting through weird stuff. And, keep your head on a swivel. And your mind clear, and be ready to act if needed in unconventional ways, things that you normally wouldn't think of doing. Uh, the things like moving to Montana in the middle of the winter. That's not usually how you would do these things. But, you know, it's the person who says, well, I can't do that, but winds up standing there and getting plowed under. You know, you have to be willing to look at it and go, you know what? This is not a good place to be. I better not be here, whatever that means at the time. So be flexible, um, be adaptable, um, creates mutual support systems and things like that. Okay. If you're in a really bad spot where you're going like, well, if the power goes out here, it's going to be Mad Max in 12 hours. You know, perhaps you might want to move. That may be disrupting a lot of your life. Absolutely. But as the Jews said about being a Jew in Germany in the 1930s, the pessimists went into exile and the optimists went in the gas chamber. Better to be 10 years too early than 1 minute too late. Okay? Think. Think rationally. Think carefully. Think options. Okay, I'm going to try this, but if that doesn't work, then what? And so seeds aren't bad. Again, Ed, up here, they're of less usefulness than some places, more usefulness than southern Arizona without a water supply. Well, another thing, Paul, is to not be there when the enemy shows up. If some guy's there to hurt you and you're not there, you don't get hurt. you know? So that mobility can be the key. It's nice having the minor bago. It's specifically built, designed to be self-sufficient for extended periods of time. And if we just had a modest amount of propane, we could stay comfortable even in the middle of the winter here. Without that, we would have to use a lot of bedding. Guess what? We have a lot of bedding. We have some good sleeping bags. We have multiple comforters and stuff. And with the insulation in that thing, it would probably be about, with the body heat, 20 to 30 degrees above ambient. So if it was 20 below zero, we'd be sub-freezing in there. But 0 to 10 degrees, maybe 20, just from body heat, we can live in that. Yeah, Ed, what's going to happen in a shit hits the fan scenario in a situation like that is people get shot. You try and defraud somebody of something important, you're just going to wind up taking a dirt nap. That's how, when the rubber hits the road, things work. That's why, in the Old West, stealing a horse, hanging a fence, rustling cows, hanging a fence, because it was serious shit. That could kill somebody. And so let's say that's another thing to think about. The whole situation of, well, we just have to take it to court. Well, you may not be taking things to court in a situation like that. Rocket stoves work okay, And don't shop alone. Not a bad idea. Unless he shoots first, blind dude. Although it's interesting that the New York Times suggested, well, this prohibition on cannibalism, is that old fashioned? It's like, what do you know that we don't? you know? But so I don't know. I don't know. Have no clue. But think about your family, think about yourself, think about your community, and do what you can to come out the best you can. Back to mining. First of all, has anyone got any questions? Because I don't really have much new to chat about here besides what I said at the beginning of the whole live stream. We've gone almost 3 hours without Jim. Oh, by the way, Jim is, he was up on the mountain. Well, not on the mountain. He was near the mountain preparing some support facilities. And I believe Lauren was there with him today too, but I do not know. You could, Paul. But so he wasn't here again today, the slacker. I haven't seen either Jim or Lauren on the thing. Blind dude, the filming is done. It will show up sometime in the next 12 months, I believe. Okay. It's being edited and stuff like that. When he has authorization to say when and what, we will let you all know. Don't know right now, blind dude. I really don't know. I presume Jim does. Yeah, that's a good point, Ed. Non-lethal stuff, like around here, bear spray is good for bears too. But it gives you an option that you can use without a whole lot of hesitation. When you've got somebody threatening and you think it's serious, but you don't know for sure, and they don't have a weapon, but there's two of them, you hate to just start shooting. But a quick sweep with some bear spray, it's like, hey, two guys were threatening me, so I sprayed them. Very good point. You want to have, again, options. And sometimes that means an intermediate option. You don't have to go all the way, just far enough. Oh. For threatening your deputy prime minister, huh, Goldstream? You're in BC, right? I'm just guessing, Goldstream, that the deputy prime minister probably deserved a talking to. Yeah, I don't know what the situation is going to be with firearms. Alberta? Okay. Yeah, they're going to try and take away our guns. Yeah, I figured that, Goldstream. So they want to be able to call us all kinds of bad names, but boy, they don't want to take anything. Absolutely. And personally, I'd like to have an AR-15 that fires a bullet 5 times faster than any other rifle. But they don't make such a thing. That article had it had a link to that stuff. The fastest rifle cartridge ever made. It was in the 70s, and it's a 378 Weatherby Magnum case with a 50 grain 5.56 bullet on it, and It's called the Irgersplitten Laudenboomen. And I thought that's pretty funny, man. Oh, anyhow, anything else, anybody? I have no opinion on the impossible mass shooting part, but the gun grab, yep, predictable. You know, if the government doesn't trust me with guns, I don't trust the government to take my guns. Just the way it is. Because, quite frankly, I'm pretty sure I'm a lot more moral than my government is. And I know I'm a lot more reluctant to kill somebody. I would imagine, Paul. I would imagine. I know that if they ban some, there's going to be. Yeah. Which rifle was that, Ed? Too heavy to aim it? Yeah, well, if it's too heavy to aim, then it's not good for you. Your firearm should be comfortable for you. What rifle was it, Keith? I honestly don't recall. But I like that AR-10 I had. I had to do a couple things to minimize the recoil, just cushion it up, butt pad and a little cheek pad too. Aside from that, I like that little rascal. Had to sell it too. Okay. Really, huh? Yeah, Paul, that could happen. Heavy Chinese AK?
A note on digital currencies.
What?
The Federal Reserve announced last week it expects its FedNow service, a new online system facilitating instant digital monetary transactions between people and businesses, to come online sometime between May and July of 2023. It could potentially pave the way for the central bank digital currency.
That's a pretty good selection, Tricky. Did everyone hear that from Eva? The Federal Reserve says they're going to have their new digital currency thingy up and running when?
May to July of 2023, FedNow will come online.
May to July of 2023, FedNow. I agree with that, blind dude. I'm just surprised that in Canuckville, Goldstream, that they managed to stab so many people without getting shot. Good for you, blind dude. I got a debit card. That's it. I pretty much have to do online purchases. Find what this is. Yep. Possible. I trust them about as far as I can throw bugs. That would be the minor bago.
Oh, I thought you were talking about our dinner in a few years.
And at 8,500 pounds, I don't think I can throw it very far. Well, your folks were smart, blind dude. Um, I don't think it's going to happen until after the election, blind dude. There's a number of reasons, but the number one reason is if they don't get a new president installed before January 20th of 2023, then the new president can go for two terms after the half term they serve. Ah, sweet. Glad to hear it, Goldstream. They deserve it. Hope he suffered. Sorry, I'm just not a nice guy. Someone, deliberately harms other people, they should suffer.
Oh, did they catch those guys that did the stabbing spree?
The Goldstream says one is dead and apparently the other is injured.
Wow, somebody messed up. Injured?
I don't know. Don't have details from Goldstream here, but the fact that one's dead would indicate they actually have a body. The other one is injured. Could mean he's in custody or not. I don't know.
Any idea what the story is on them yet? Our media's been awful.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything on motivation or the backstory or anything, Goldstream. You got any idea what's the story with that? That's pretty weird. Usually you don't have guys go on a assault knife stabbing spree. Now that would be torture, Goldstream. I can let me click to Breitbart here. They're not the best, but they're not CNN. Let's see.
Nobody trusts CNN.
Joe Biden is no longer Republicans, Americans versus MAGA. Yeah. It's not there yet. Jet carrying 4 people crashes into Baltic Sea. No explanation at all. Oh, you want to make a bet? Watch Blanco Lirio. Loss of pressurization. We don't know for sure what happened, but it looks like a loss of pressurization event. And either they didn't get on oxygen fast enough or the oxygen didn't work or whatever, but you're pretty much screwed. Chile votes to reject proposed far-left constitution, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, how long will it be before their government puts it in anyway?
I have no idea.
Any bets?
Yeah, we don't have anything on that yet. I'm sure we'll find out tomorrow. Yeah, he wound up crashing in a field. Yeah, I think that it was what do they call them? Indigenous up there? I forget. Is it true, or did you see it on
people?
What?
First Nations.
First Nations, yes. Another 20 billion to Ukraine. Now let's see. That's
What else is new?
19 billion, 500 million to scumbags and 500 million maybe to the people. We'll see.
You're being optimistic there, Bear. You forgot to shave off the big guys 10% off.
Oh yeah, the big guy gets 10%. I forgot. Oh, I forgot my water. Where is my water? Goodness gracious. Goldstream says Aboriginal is the phrase used up there. Ed Henry says First Nation.
Yeah, First Nations is the one I think they want to do.
I think that's the official government thing. I don't know if that's the cultural. I don't know about you, but I haven't changed my ethnic group in a long time. I'm either Caucasian or white for my whole life.
Your melanin challenge.
Rainmaker's probably right. Probably 15% for the big guy now because of inflation.
forgotten about that.
Yeah, that's a good one, Rainmaker. Very good. You be sharp this time of night. Okay, well, before we get us all kicked off of YouTube, I'll call it a night here. Although everyone has been pretty careful exactly what they say.
Good night,
And
everybody.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So they have two groups, the Indians and the Eskimos. They call them the Inuit up there, don't they? Anyhow, so unless there's some new questions or something, Blind Dude says, night all. Thanks for the stream. YouTube Gold Stream. 110 degrees in Central Cali today. I'm glad I'm not there. Oh, I'm sure I'm on a list someplace, Artie. Being a clear and present danger and all that stuff. Luckily, it's a very big list. I couldn't say who the big guy's name is. No, can't tell.
I think it's malarkey.
Oh, I agree with you, Goldstream. Like every other group, there's good people and bad people. They've got so many external influences that tend to make for bad culture. It doesn't help though. Our Native Americans down here, or the Indians, whatever you want to call them, it just happened suddenly, like this afternoon. It's clearly not a like a cancer or anything like that. It could be due to a clotting thing or something, maybe, but I didn't hit it that I can think of. We'll see. I had one here a couple days ago, and now it's gone. So, like I say, it's something weird. I have an appointment with a dermatologist in a couple of months. If they keep happening, I'll do that. If it stays, then I can go. But there's no sense making an appointment with a dermatologist, show up and say, I had something on my lip. Yeah, Blind Dude. Those things happen. Not to my knowledge, Roberts, nothing. Yeah, I mean, it looks like an impact. I don't think so, Tricky. All righty, everyone. Well, let's call it a night, and hopefully I have more news and fun stuff for you next week. Maybe Jim will even be back. So happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.